Revelation chapter 12, verse 9, the Bible reads, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So we can see clearly here that this power deceives the entire world. You see, sometimes we think deception will just come from a small corner somewhere. But we need to realize that deception will come through fully organized institutions. Institutions that me and you trust today. Institutions that are well established, and we even desire to work for those institutions. It is through those institutions that deception will come to this world. If we read Revelation chapter 3, verse 6 to 8, the Bible reads as follows. From verse 6, and I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel, to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people. So this is our message that we are supposed to focus on. And Ellen White puts it this way, that you see that the health message is not the three angels message, but it is connected to the three angels message. So in other words, there is no way we can preach the three angels message without talking about health reform. Isn't it, amazing that when we are today in a health pandemic, we have already been prepared through a health message that we have been given as a church. But today, what we see, it's as if the church needs lectures from the world in terms of health. Is it not the other way around? Are we not the one who are supposed to be teaching the world about health? Now, we are told here that it is time for us to examine ourselves. Okay, I'll read here in the King James Version. Examine yourselves, wherefore, if ye be in the faith. Prove your own selves, know ye not yourselves, how that Jesus Christ is in you, except ye be reprobates. So friends, it is time for us to examine ourselves, to look at our standing with God. Have we followed all the teachings that we have been given? Every ray of light that has been given to this church is very much essential in times such as this. And one of those is the health message that we have been given as a church. Do you know one of the things that led the Israelites? In fact, what caused them to perish in the wilderness? It's because they refused to reform when it comes to health. Because you see, they cried for the flesh pots in Egypt. God gave them manna. But they said they wanted flesh. If we read in Numbers chapter 11, it tells us God was not pleased by that. And because of that, many of them perished in the wilderness, from those who came out of Egypt. You see, though they experienced God and they saw a lot of miracles that God performed, but their lifestyles could not be changed by the miracles. You see, friends, seeing the Red Sea part and being provided with water from the rocks, it was not enough to change their lifestyle. So our lifestyles are more powerful than miracles. That's why the most powerful miracle is when a sinner becomes a saint. So yet they saw all these things,
Viram isso tudo?
Even when the cloud led them by day
Quando as nuvens de dia,
and a pillar of fire by night,
fogo à noite,
still they still desired the life in Egypt
mesmo assim queriam a vida de Egito.
because that's the life they had become accustomed to.
Aquela vida que eles costumavam.
And do you know when they were just about to cross and inherit the promised land,
Quando estavam para chegar no coisa na lei de promessa,
when the report came from the spies,
quando mandaram uma resposta,
it's only Joshua and Caleb who gave a correct report.
só foi Josué.
What was different between Joshua and Caleb and the rest of the spies?
Qual é que foi diferente entre José e
And in
Caleb?
fact, if you read that story, they didn't just choose anyone.
Se você ler aquela história,
They,
escolheram só
they
qualquer.
chose representatives of each tribe.
Ali cada qual representava uma tribo.
These were leaders of each tribe.
Ali eram líderes de uma tribo.
And Joshua and Caleb were leaders in their tribe.
José e Caleb foram líderes de uma tribo.
But those who gave a false report,
Aqueles que deram informações
It-
falsas,
they were among those who refused to reform on the issues of health.
também foram eles que revisaram na palavra, na mensagem da saúde.
But Joshua and Caleb were closer to Moses.
José e Caleb foram muito próximos
What
de Moisés.
Moses was eating, that's what they were eating.
O que Moisés estava a comer é que eles também estavam a comer.
What Moses believed in, that's what they believed in.
Moisés estava a acreditar, também o que eles estavam a acreditar.
That's why even when they saw the fortified cities,
É por isso quando eles viram as 44
they still
cidades,
said, our God is still able to help us overcome.
viam que nosso Deus está pronto a nos ajudar.
So if we cannot trust God now,
Se a gente não acredita a Deus agora,
if we cannot trust God now with our
se
lifestyle,
a gente não acredita a Deus agora,
if we are not reforming on issues of health today,
se a gente não baseia na vida da
it
saúde,
means when we are faced with bigger challenges, we are still going to compromise.
quando a gente tiver problemas grandes,
We see the very same thing with the Hebrew boys.
vamos ver a mesma coisa com os hebreus.
When we read chapter 1 of Daniel,
Quando a gente ler o capítulo 1 de Daniel,
we see a health issue.
vamos ver a mensagem de saúde.
Daniel and his friend decide we are not going to eat the king's food
Daniel e seus amigos disseram assim, não vamos comer a
because
comida
it
do rei.
contradicts our health message.
Contradiz a nossa mensagem de saúde.
When we go to chapter 3,
Vai no capítulo 3.
we see a worship crisis.
Vamos ver agora a adoração.
And then a golden image is erected.
Ali a estátua de ouro está no altar.
And the entire Babylon is called to worship the image.
A Babilônia inteira é
Friends,
chamada para
friends,
adorar aquela estátua.
Daniel and the 3 Hebrew boys were not the only ones who came out of,
Os três hebreus
who were in captivity.
estavam na catividade.
There were many other Israelites.
Ali havia outros
But those who compromised on the table of the king,
aqueles que comprometeram na mesa do rei.
they are the ones who bowed down to the image.
Aqueles que baixaram pela imagem.
But the Hebrew boys remained standing.
Os hebreus manteram de pé.
Oh yes, today we are in a health crisis.
Hoje estamos na mensagem de saúde.
Soon we are about to get into a worship crisis.
Vamos entrar na mensagem.
And those who are not standing strong now in this health crisis,
Não estão a ficar duro agora.
they will not be able to stand when it's time for a worship crisis.
De pé naquele dia da mensagem.
History is about to repeat itself again.
Olha, vai se repetir de novo.
The question is, where do you stand, friends?
A pergunta é onde é que você
Now
está?
listen to what Ellen White says in Christian Service.
Ouça o que a Elina White diz aqui.
She says, it is a solemn statement that I make to the church that not 1 in 20 whose names are registered upon the church books are prepared to close their earthly history and would be as verily without God and without hope in the world as the common sinner. So what she's actually saying is most of us who are in good and regular standing
O que está querendo dizer aqui é que muitos de nós que
on
estamos
our church books,
no livro da igreja,
we are not ready to close our earth history.
tá dizendo, nós estamos preparados.
In other
para
words,
ver atravessar
we are
a
not
história.
ready for the crisis that is coming before us.
Nós estamos preparados para ver.
We are not ready for the soon return of our Lord and Savior
Nós
Jesus
estamos
Christ
preparados à volta do Senhor.
because we have neglected preparation.
Nós negamos a preparação.
We think we should just come to church and
Nós
preach,
pensamos que é só vir à igreja e
though our lifestyles do not correlate with what we believe.
o estilo da nossa vida não conjuga.
But a verse that gives me hope.
Nos dá esperança.
Let's look at the last question of the day as we close.
Vamos ver na última pergunta.
It's in Revelations chapter 7, verse 13 and 14.
Apocalipse 7, a 40.
It says, and one of the elders answered. Now, very interesting.
Agora é muito interessante.
The Bible says one of the elders answered.
A Bíblia diz que dos
But when you
respondeu.
look at what the elder says, it's actually a
Mas
question.
você vê o colchão diz, é uma
So it
pergunta.
says, and one of the elders answered, saying,
Dos anciãos respondeu.
saying unto me, what are these which are arrayed in white robes?
Fizeram assim, essas coisas vermelhas na pedra.
And whence came they?
Isso veio da onde?
Now, the individual asking here is one of the 24 elders.
Isso são os 24 anciãos.
One of the 24 elders who sit around the throne of God.
Os 24 anciãos que sentam no trono
And,
de
and,
Deus.
and he asked John, who was still on earth,
Perguntou o João que estava na terra.
he asked him, but who are these?
Esses são quem?
These that are arrayed in white robes.
Esses que estão tão vermelho e
And,
branco.
and where do they come from?
Vem da onde?
Now listen to the response.
Olha na resposta.
John says, and I said unto him, say thou knowest.
E João disse assim,
John says, you know better than me.
você sabe melhor que
I do not have, clear answers in terms of who these people are.
Respostas direitas para te dar.
But you have been around the throne of God, so you know better.
Você estava ao redor do trono de Deus.
And the elder actually answered the question that he asked himself
Perguntou de novo.
and said, these are they
Esses são
which have come out of tribulations
vieram da tribulação.
and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb.
Lavaram as suas roupas brancas.
Friends, if we read this chapter,
Amigos, se a gente lê
it tells us that there will be every nation in heaven.
vai
Every
todas as
nation
nações
will be
estarão lá no céu.
represented in heaven.
Todas as nações estarão lá no
Okay,
céu.
every tongue will be represented in heaven.
Todas as línguas estarão
Every
lá no céu.
tribe will be represented in heaven.
Todas as tribos estarão lá.
So friends, if every tribe will be represented in heaven,
Amigos, então,
what is your excuse for not making it in heaven?
Então, qual é a tua desculpa para você
If,
não
if,
poder
if,
chegar
if
lá?
every nation will be represented in heaven,
Se todas as nações estarão
what
lá,
is your excuse of not making it in heaven?
qual é a tua desculpa de
If
você
there
não
will be
estar no céu?
Namibians in heaven,
Se haverá namibianos no
why
céu,
should you not be among those that will make it in heaven?
Você não fica
No, maybe let me read it in verse 9
Vou ler no verso 9.
of chapter 7, Revelation.
Apocalipse
The Bible says, after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. Friends, if people who speak Silozi,
Amigos, as pessoas que falam
if people who speak Portuguese,
os que falam português,
if people who speak English,
os que falam inglês,
if people who speak Oshuambo
os que falam espanhol,
will make it to heaven,
se vão estar lá no
then
céu,
what's your reason why you will not make it to heaven?
qual é o teu problema? Você não poder
We are
falar?
told from Adam until our time and in the future,
Fomos ditos de Adão,
there will be multitudes who will make it
essa multidade
in heaven.
no céu,
But of course, we know in these last days,
nesses últimos dias,
there will only be a small group that will be ready
só vai ter grupo pequeno que vai estar
to
preparado,
stand for the truth,
que vai estar na verdade,
just like the Hebrew boys.
da maneira que os hebreus,
But from Adam until our time and in the future,
a partir do tempo de
there will
Adão,
be a multitude that no man can number.
não terá números de pessoas.
The question is,
A pergunta é,
why will you not be able to make it?
por que você não estará lá?
If people will speak your very language, you'll be in heaven.
Se as pessoas falam a tua língua, estará
I
lá.
believe, friends, me and you have an opportunity
Eu
and a privilege to make it.
acredito que eu, você e eu